A gathering of the Khalidian underground's highest-ranking chieftains is taking place far out and deep under Nebu's jungle. They all stand around the war room table and listen in on the sons of Brezalek debate the next move for their own colony. The eldest son and heir to the hidden underground, Brevok, calmly explains his perspective to his brother, Zabelazek, who was in nature the polar opposite of him and a direct reflection of their ferocious father, though less unrefined. As Brevok makes the case that though Atlas's murder of Brezalek was unfortunate, it was unavoidable for the path that Brezalek was on. Zabelazek disagrees.
Our father brought us along on this path, and remain on this path we must.
Zabelazek urges the hidden underground to continue his father's warpath and crush Atlas before they grow stronger. And he wasn't alone. Brezalek's ferocious son had support from a handful of the chieftains, and if he was alive, he would be very proud of his son. But Brevok was more calculating. Any Khalidian leader with a sound mind and control of their pride would see that going to war with Atlas Corp with such a small commune was suicide. Brevok raises his voice over his brothers.
We've all seen the result of an attack against Atlas. We will not make the same mistake twice.
The rest of the chieftains echo Brevok's opinion. Zabelazek looks around the room as voices of those who failed to honor his father's death reverberate throughout the cavern, driving him mad and even more so furious. His head begins to boil, and his father's gem necklace worn in his honor begins to grow warm around his neck. With such intense hatred brewing within Zabelazek, while the veil between dimensional plates wore thin, he becomes a bright beacon for abyssal intruders. Unseen by everyone else, we watch as an abyssal entity crosses over and attempts to claw its way into Zabelazek's soul, but is immediately raptured by his father's shaman soul-trapping gem, where it is consumed and used as fuel to bolster his madness. Once consumed, this triggers Zabelazek to finally lose his temper and lunges at Brevok, pulling him up out of his chair by the neck. All of the chieftains rush to assist Brevok, but with a swift wave of his prosthetic arm, he calls them off. Brevok utters,
Brezalek drug a fraction of our forces from Haven on an unplanned conquest. It was suicide, Zabelazek.
His angry brother leans in, at a loss for words. Brevok can see the stone glowing on his brother's neck.
Our father was drunk off of magic before he was destroyed by it. And here you are, drunk on power that isn't even your own. You will suffer a similar fate if you don't unhand me.
Instead, Zabelazek tightens his grip, when suddenly, a voice shouts within the crowd of chieftains, "Let go of him." Everyone turns and sees a notorious outcast Khalidian assassin named Demet, leaning against the wall. Cold, calculating, and geared up from head to toe, his moderately muscled and lanky frame was fitted in 7 Zarkons worth of high-tech elite hunting armor, likely paid off by gallons of his praised blood. Many were envious and harbored bitterness toward the hometown hunter-gatherer they all once knew, before he became a high-profile killer, then distancing himself from the commune, likely due to Brezalek threatening to devour him on sight. Demet returns, coincidentally after Brezalek has been killed. He approaches Zabelazek as the chieftains clear the way, except for one. Demet's aftermarket cybernetic eyes, stylized with neon green serial numbers, lock with the chief's glare as he towers over him. Demet continues, shoulder-shoving the chief out of the way. Zabelazek frowns.
Your words have no weight here, traitor.
The others co-sign. But this was not true at all. Demet echoes Brevok's philosophy and agrees that the hidden underground should not attack Atlas. Brevok's supporters stand behind this declaration, furthering the wedge within the faction's politics. Demet begins to calmly circle the war table and speaks on politics, modernization, and power. He requests that Brevok, as the leader of the underground, join him in revolutionizing the Khalidians. He then promises better equipment and training for all Khalidian cells. Look around you. The world is changing and so must we. No longer will we be insulted, despised, or hated. We will rise up and take back our place as the apex predators. Majority of the congregation has bought in and vocalized their support for Brevok leading, with Dimit on his wing. Zabelazek screeches, causing everyone to quiet down. Then he leaps up on a table and draws his cybernetic glaive and points it between Dimit's eyes.
I will kill this outcast and anyone else who would attempt to put a traitor in the seat of leadership. I will serve no traitor and no murderer of his own.
Before more words could leave his jowls, Dimit sweeps Zabelazek off of his feet with his electromagnetic marksman rifle, then plants his savage knife under him just in time for Zabelazek to land, impaling him upon it face up. Zabelazek wails. Dimit then holds his pistol to Zabelazek's head and blows it completely off, splattering his brain matter all over the table. Everyone watches in awe at this execution, speechless. Dimit reaches for a handful of Zabelazek's neck meat, rips it off, and takes a large chomp, then holds it up in the air, triggering a thunderous Kalidian ovation from the tribe's leaders. Brevok was unmoved by his brother's grisly demise and viewed it as the sunsetting of his father's fruitless philosophy. Brevok announces that the hidden underground will rally with Dimit, and together it will restore the Kalidian race. We see a blacksmith tempering Atlas railway plates at high speed using cybernetic arms. 13 more to go, he thinks to himself as he tries to sustain a breathing method suitable for his overworked heart. The blacksmith stops when he hears a faint whistling chirping from behind his weapon's tent. He knew what this meant, and so he flips his sign so that it reads, "Away on lunch," as he makes his way back into his tent. John slips in and greets the smithy, getting straight to the point. The smithy was an Ica loyalist and supporter of the Haven colonists. He was spared by Atlas due to his exceptional trade skills, and in secret has been sharing Atlas's mercenary patrol trade routes and schedules with John, allowing them to slowly ease closer and closer to a resurgence. Fractal perspectives. John's unique mutation that allows him to temporarily traverse multiple life paths in order to choose the ideal one is what got the colony this far. But not without bloodshed. It was John Sage Quill's inspiration that pushed ordinary people to do incredible things. It was only a matter of time before John discovers the path to victory, which is why he risks his life to be out on the field, where there was opportunity. John receives confirmation from the smithy that the Atlas patrol guarding the North Lab facility are going to be a bit thin due to some hostile native wildlife. The two shake hands, and John slips him a Jacob-rigged pistol for protection. The smithy shows John gratitude and whispers, "For the people, everything." John nods in agreement, then walks off into the dark. John peeks outward around the tent and surveys the area nonchalantly and incognito, tucking his head low as he blends in with the flow of the crowd. Suddenly, he runs directly into someone that felt like a brick wall. He looks up and sees Razul Nosferatu, staring back with an expression of utter annoyance. John apologizes and doesn't let his face show for long before dipping back into the crowd. Razul recognized John, perhaps the only gentleman on the island more renowned than himself. Razul then refocuses on his own task and presses on. John regroups with Morris and his party at the northern outskirts of the colony where the facility was marked on the map. John asks Morris to check to see if this was the correct facility. Morris reaches for the map for a closer look until they are both startled by a sound of gunfire nearby. They duck down and peek through the bushes to find a guard post painted in blood. Clearly, the guards are having some trouble. One last Atlas guard sprints toward the facility door, but under pressure fails miserably to get their key card into the card reader. She's then briefly distracted when she sees John and Morris watching her from the bushes. Suddenly, something startles her again, and she begins to book back across the lot, running for her life. A pack of 15-foot-long acid-spewing worms called Elrin come slithering after her at about 30 miles per hour and capture her swiftly. They bind her tight, suffocating her as her armor crumbles and corrodes. The chance to slip into the facility unnoticed was now. John signals to Morris and his allies hidden in the tall surrounding flora. Several of them, including Morris, sprint into the facility, when suddenly an Elrin notices Morris and gives chase. Morris sees the worm fast approaching, and as the last one in, he is forced to pick up the pace. The Elrin begins spitting acid at Morris, who zigzags, barely avoiding the spew. With the door's lever within reach, Morris trips and falls and faceplants, but lands inside the entrance nonetheless. The Elrin, only yards away, prepares to lunge at Morris. As it draws closer and closer, only seconds away, Morris's first reaction was to grab his mysterious staff with his bare hands, but catches himself. Before the Elrin could strike, Morris's disembodied hand runs up his arm, then springboards off of his fingers into a floaty spiral toward the lever and seals the door closed in the nick of time. The Elrin can be heard crashing into the door on the other side. Morris exhales. Sometimes he doesn't know what he would do without his third hand. John's party finds themselves within a LED ink weapons facility, but don't have to go too far before John discovers Nomad's legs laying beside several LED Corp crates, and Nomad's body nestled in between them. John pulls parts of Nomad out from the pile. He then removes the disabling node that was attached to Nomad's forehead. Nomad is freed from the stasis field and immediately begins repairing itself and its internal programs. As the Haven colonists secure the entrance and keep watch, the three converse over current events until everyone is brought up to speed. Nomad reaches for its tattered red cloak and tosses it back around its neck. The Nebby jungle was filled with amazing new research specimens. However, since Atlas's expansion, it has all become irreversibly contaminated, and damage control is needed to prevent further loss of assets, according to Nomad. Nomad was ready to do what must be done, as well as protect his allies. John walks toward the exit. Come on, Nomad, before reinforcements return. Nomad begins to configure a new Eventide spatial bridge generator, replacing the old model. Morris compliments Nomad on his new shiny mechanism. Nomad signals for them to stand back as he squares himself up and adjusts his posture. The innovations my creator made in designing me are extraordinary. However, I have always had a couple quality of life improvements I wanted to implement. A large, gaping portal opens up and steps protrude from its depths, creating a path connecting this space to another. Nomad ascends the stairs and turns to Morris and John. Unless fending off more Elrin is your desire, then you should follow me. John looks at Morris. Don't worry, John, Morris says with a smirk. It's painless. Just walk through is all. Morris walks into Nomad's portal, his floating hand close behind him twirling his staff. John exhales, then walks through the Eventide spatial bridge after them.